Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Daily Knitter Knitting Podcast. My name is Tiffany. Today's episode, I wanted to try something a little new and do some fun life updates right at the top of the episode. I saw a few of my knitting podcasters that I watch do some life updates sporadically, and I really enjoy seeing those updates because it just makes me feel like I get to know them a little bit better as people and not just knitters here on the internet. So I thought I would try that out. I'm not going to be sharing like a lot of super detailed information because I want to keep it still more private, my private life more private, but I just thought it might be fun to incorporate here and there. I'm not going to do this every podcast episode, but I thought I would try it out today. As usual, I will have chapters down below, so if you are not interested in any life updates, you can just fast forward to the knitting content. So my first life update is that I am now in my third trimester. I am 30 weeks and 5 days pregnant. So yeah, I am feeling it. Again, you can't really see when I'm sitting down in these videos because my stomach is basically off camera. But yeah, I'm in the home stretch now. It's very exciting. We both are so excited to meet our baby boy, and I'm feeling him kick and move around and hiccup a lot every day, which has been, for the most part, very fun because you really get to get a sense of your baby's personality and when they're most active, and they react to your voice, they react to what you're eating, they react to other people touching your belly and things like that. And it feels like I've waited my entire pregnancy to be able to really feel him 24/7. Now that being said, it's a little annoying at night when I'm trying to fall asleep and he's doing somersaults in my stomach and making it hard for me to go to bed. And I will say, as he's been getting bigger, I've definitely gotten more heartburn and feeling like my stomach just is a little off because it's all squished up in there. So those are kind of the main symptoms that I've been feeling in the third trimester. But overall, I've had like a very easy pregnancy, and I'm very, very grateful for that. That being said, I'm already feeling so exhausted. I really don't know how other women do it when they have even more symptoms than I'm having. So that is big update number one. Update number two, or just life highlight, I guess, number two is Happy Lunar New Year. It's a little late because we're already into February, and Lunar New Year was on January 29th this year, I believe. My family is Chinese, so we celebrate Chinese New Year every year. And for my family, our traditions, for the most part, my parents have actually lived in China. This is the first year that my mom has moved to the US to be with us during my pregnancy and to help with childcare and stuff. So she's actually back in China currently because my grandfather is suffering some health issues, and it all coincided with Chinese New Year anyways. So she's been back in China, and she's going to be back at the end of this month. So we did what we usually do, which is usually I FaceTime my parents and we bow for our red packet money. And nowadays, you know, my parents just send money virtually. But back in the day, I remember bowing to my parents and all of our family members when we would visit China, and we would get physical red packets with cash money in them. It's definitely the fun part of Chinese New Year. But other than that, there's a lot of traditions surrounding it depending on how you celebrate it. Like day by day, you can technically celebrate it for like the full 10 days, and on each day you do something kind of different. For us, for me, especially this year being pregnant, we just did a dumpling night with my in-laws. Like I mentioned, my mom is in China, so obviously she didn't partake, but we've done this actually every year with with me and my husband and our in-laws, or my in-laws, and also his brother and sister and 2 girls. And it's been really, really fun to get to share that tradition with his family. And yeah, we made dumplings. This year, unfortunately, his brother's family got really sick, so they weren't able to come. And the girls were so bummed. My older niece is at that age now where she can make dumplings relatively independently. Like, she was making them herself last year and she really enjoys making them, so she was really sad. We will definitely have to do a makeup dumpling night. We were making dumplings and they were delicious as usual, and yeah, that was like definitely a little highlight recently. All right, so let's get on to the regular scheduled programming. I'm gonna start off with some completed objects or finished objects. I always like change how I say it. The first thing is I wanted to quickly show you all my finished Musselburgh hat, which I technically included in last week's episode, so I won't talk too much about it. If you want to see the details and things, I go through that. I will put it up here as a card, but I did want to show what it looked like off the blocking mat, because when I showed it in that video, I only showed it on the mat, and because I was just excited because it was finished, but I realized that you don't really get the full effect until you see it all folded up and nice. So this is the Musselburgh hat. I usually knit it in the child to adult small size. The yarn I used is the Knit Picks Capra DK. It is a merino wool and cashmere blend, and I really, really love the fabric that turned out. The recommended needles are 4 to 5 millimeter needles, 4 to maybe 4.5, and I actually sized down to a 3.5 millimeter needle because I wanted to create a very dense fabric, and I really achieved that. So I'm happy I decided to go down a needle size. And what's nice is you can see I'm just holding the bottom, but it creates a much stiffer beanie, and to me it feels much more similar to commercially made beanies that have a lot of structure to them. So I really like the fabric that created. And this Musselburgh hat was a lot quicker to knit up than my usual one that I do in a fingering weight. And I think a lot of people end up doing the Musselburgh in the fingering weight, and it does create a beautiful fabric and really nice drapier beanie. But I just wanted to experiment with a DK weight just to see what it would look like, and I was initially worried that it would be too bulky, but looking at this and wearing it, it is the perfect weight actually. I probably even prefer this beanie over my other Musselburgh that I knitted with a fingering weight yarn, and I think I might be converted to knitting this with DK/sport weight. I will say, because I sized down with my needles, my gauge is technically closer to a sport weight gauge, but the yarn is considered a DK yarn. So someone let me know if that means that this is a sport weight beanie. I don't know. It's basically about a 24 stitch gauge if you are curious, and this is about the thickness of fabric it'll get you if you are interested in knitting it in a sport to DK weight. I think it looks lovely. I really love the kind of variation in the yarn. It's not quite variegated, it's just almost speckled. It's like a dusty pink, and it just looks beautiful. Love wearing it, super warm, and I just wanted to show it off in its actual finished form for you all. The next little accessory just came off my... I actually dried this on a rack instead of laying it out to dry because it was so long. But this is the... Why am I blanking? Sorry, this is the Pia shawl by Dominika Penduzu. I think that's her name. Now, she also does have a Pia scarf pattern, and the shawl pattern still very much resembles a mini scarf pattern, if that makes sense. Like, the finished dimensions to me still read much more like a scarf than they do a shawl. So I came across the shawl pattern and just decided to knit that one to get a slightly bigger mini scarf. And I feel like I achieved that with this. I actually did much less repeats than the pattern calls for. The pattern calls for you to do 7 full repeats in the body of the scarf. Basically, you are increasing and then you knit along the same length and then you decrease, very similar to a lot of mini scarf patterns. I didn't do as many repeats in the body just because I didn't want it to be as long as what the pattern stated. And what's nice about these mini scarves is depending on how much yarn you have, you can really dictate how long or short you want it to go. And so I wanted it to be long enough so that I could do this sort of double wrap, just like how you can double wrap the Sophie scarf, and I didn't want the tails to be too long once it was double wrapped like this. And the nice thing is, of course, you can just wear it like that or, you know, wrap it like this. It's very versatile. The yarn that I use is the Malabrigo Rios yarn in the colorway Illusion. And the Rios yarn is a worsted weight yarn, and maybe, I guess it's like DK to worsted depending on the needles you use, and it is their 100% superwash wool. And this is what the patterning looks like. It's all done with knits and purls, and it creates almost a 2x2 ribbing structure, so it's nice and thick and warm and bouncy. However, I'm not sure if it's because of the yarn that I used, but my width is a fair amount thinner than the original pattern. The original pattern shawl width, I believe, when you're at the body of it, is maybe 13 centimeters, and I only got to like 8.5, so I'm a good chunk skinnier, and I'm not quite sure why. Maybe because if you were using 100% regular wool, it would block out closer to this. However, because of the superwash, maybe it's coming in a little. I'm not sure. Someone let me know what it's not really that big of a problem because ultimately I did want it to be more of a mini scarf, so I'm fine with it being this width. But just keep that in mind. I think if you're using a superwash yarn, I'm not sure if it's just the Malabrigo yarn or any superwash, you're gonna get that. But it's a lovely pattern. I will say the repeat section of the pattern is not that easy to memorize. At least I couldn't memorize it. I definitely had to be referencing the written instructions. They're basically 6 repeats per repeat, and so within the small repeat you can not reference and just knit as the stitches present, but then once you get past that 6 strand like section, you need to go to the next one and you would kind of have to refer to the pattern. So it's one of those patterns where it is a little potato chippy because you want to get to the next little section, but it's a little harder to do on the go, and I would not recommend this on the go unless you have a really good memory and you can really memorize that whole 7-row repeat. Then good on you, but I definitely couldn't do that. So this was just my little morning knit where I would give myself an hour every morning just to work on it, and I have to reference the written instructions, but I really like the way it looks, and I wanted a palette cleanser from the Sophie scarf, so that's why I chose to do a different pattern. But if you are looking for something on the go, I don't think this is the one for you. However, I really do love the pattern that came out, and I just think it really shows off the color variation in the yarn as well. And it's really nice and warm. So I've been enjoying knitting some of these other little mini scarves, and you'll see a whip that I have that is another mini scarf that I've been really enjoying as well. My next completed object is actually a gift that we are gifting our best friends. So my husband's best friend and his wife are also expecting a baby boy, and their due date is the same exact date as ours. It's crazy. No, it was not planned. And it was such a pleasant surprise for us when they told us, and we've just been obsessed ever since. So obviously we have been getting our boys some matching outfits. At our baby shower 2 weeks ago, they actually got the boys matching little swim suits that are so cute. And of course, because I knit, I already knew I wanted to make them matching sweaters. So this is my Melange baby sweater. This is technically the second one I knit. I showed the other one that I knit, I think, in last week's episode. That one is not the one that's gonna match this one, but it's the same pattern. I just ended up knitting the smallest size for this one because after I finished my first Melange baby sweater, I realized that even though it's for 6 to 9 months, it's a huge sweater that comes out. And I don't know, to me, it's like there's no way, like he could definitely wear that post 6 to 9 months. So the sizing to me, like, I'm not really sure how she's categorizing her sizes, but this is technically the 3 to 6 month, but I don't know if you can tell on screen proportionally to my body, like this to me is like a 1-year-old could still fit into this, which is fine because I wanted to knit them pieces that they could wear for longer, you know? So I didn't want to knit something that was super tiny that they would grow out immediately. So the matching one that I'm going to knit for our son is also going to be the 3 to 6 month size in the same yarn, just different colorway. So this is by Petite Knit. Sorry if I didn't mention that. The yarn that I used are 2 Sandisgarn yarns held double. These yarns are Sandisgarn's specially formulated yarns for babies because it's called the baby wool and it's their super wash merino wool. And so I used 2 strands held together to make a DK worsted weight to hit gauge. The white that I used is just their pure white color. They don't ever put the actual name on the label, which is kind of annoying, but it's 1001. But online, they technically all have color names. So I used a white, and I believe the yellow is called baby yellow. I don't have the label anymore, so I don't know what the color like number is, but it's like the only light yellow that's in this yarn. And for our baby, I'm going to be knitting it with the white and this nice light seafoam green blue held together. And this one is 6841. So I wanted them to be coordinating, I guess, not quite matching, but I know that my friend, she loves the color yellow, so I wanted to knit her baby something yellow, and yellow is something nice and bright and gender neutral anyways, and I just love the melange effect that it created. I was a little worried when I cast this on that the yellow was too light and wouldn't show through, but I think actually as a full piece, you can really tell the melange and the yellow does show through, and I do think it's contrasting enough, and I just really, really like how it came out. Some modifications that I made. The first one is that for all of the ribbing, I actually just used 4mm needles. In the pattern, it's the body that's 4mm needles and all the ribbing is 3.5mm needles. However, as I was knitting just the stockinette portion, I felt like the yarn, because it was held double, creates a pretty dense fabric, and I was a little worried that on 3.5mm needles, it would just create a super tight fabric that I just don't think is that comfortable for babies, frankly. So for all of the ribbing, I decided to just stay with the same needle size, and that would have some give to it, which I think I created. You can see it doesn't cinch in as much at the ribbing, and the sleeves are nice and bouncy. The only thing is, I will say for the collar, it does create a wider neckline collar. So if you don't like that look, then I would size down. But for me, I really just want this to be comfortable for their baby. And this yarn is very, very soft. But that still, I think babies just don't, you know, they don't want something close up to their neck all the time. I think that's irritating. So I wanted to be safe than sorry and decided to knit the neckline quite big. So I think it looks maybe a little disproportionate, but I think physically actually wearing it will be more comfortable for the baby. So I am planning to knit my version exactly the same as this one, just with the different colorway. and I cannot wait to see what they'll look like together. I haven't cast on the one for my baby yet because obviously I still have a few more months until he's going to be wearing it, but we are going to their baby shower next weekend. So I wanted to make sure I had it to give to her, and I just think it looks so cute. It looks so good. I really love this pattern, and knitting little baby garments is so satisfying. What else can I say? Otherwise, I hit all the measurements. So if you are knitting this pattern, you can hit gauge with the 2 strands of the baby wool, or you can also use 2 strands of Sunday, which I think is what the original pattern calls for. The Sunday yarn in person might just be a tiny bit thinner than this one, even though the gauge is the same for both of these yarns. To me, I've knit with the Sunday yarn before, held double, and to me, in my memory, that creates just a slighter, looser fabric. So I'm not quite sure why that is. Maybe it's because this one is superwash, but the Sunday is just 100% wool. But yeah, regardless, I did hit gauge and all the correct measurements essentially. And the superwash is nice because for babies, you know, you want to be able to machine wash if need be, or you want just a fabric that's not going to deteriorate with a bunch of washes, which I'm sure it will be washed a lot. But absolutely loving this pattern and I can't wait to give it to them. My last finished object is a crochet baby blanket for my baby. I ended up just finding a free crochet pattern online. It's just single crochets all the way across. You essentially chain however long you want the blanket to be, single crochet through the front loop only, and you do that until your desired length. Now, I don't know if it's because of my tension or the yarn or I was accidentally decreasing, but you can see that at some point I started on this end, and at some point the blanket was just getting a little narrower and narrower. I don't know how that happened because I'm actually pretty experienced with crocheting, and I always mark my beginning stitches so that when I crochet across to the next part where I need to turn, I know exactly where my last stitch was, so I make sure to obviously crochet in the last stitch and then turn and then go from there and then mark my first stitch. So I wonder if my tension was just getting tighter and tighter for some reason. And maybe it's just because of this yarn, it's looking like it got narrower and narrower, but I was freaking myself out. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna stop now instead of getting to the point where, because I wasn't sure if that's what I was doing, so I didn't want it to be like a giant cone. So I ended up just stopping, and I just single crocheted across the entire border to create a very simple border. And I didn't bother doing the scallop border, which was originally what I was gonna do because I was just kind of fed up with this yarn, to be honest. It's a very soft yarn, and it is good for babies because it's this chenille 100% acrylic yarn, but crocheting with it is pretty frustrating because it's so soft. It has no structure, so when you're crocheting, it really makes your hands tired. So I just was getting a little frustrated and decided to cut it off, but that's okay. This will just be his little like cuddly blanket, and this will definitely be big enough for him to use as an actual blanket for a long time because he'll be so small. So I envision wrapping him in this when we bring him home from the hospital and maybe doing a few newborn photo shoots with it. And this can just be his first little cuddly blanket. Maybe we toss it in the car and things like that. And yeah, so that's kind of the idea for this one. Very, very simple. Like I said, I didn't even follow a pattern. I just kind of did it, and then you can create a little blanket like this. I will mention the yarn that I use is the Yarn Bee Baby Bee, which is their baby line. Chenille, chenille yarn in the colorway Storm Swept. I think it's called Soft and Snuggly. They have so many different variations. You can get this yarn at Hobby Lobby. I think exclusively at Hobby Lobby. I'm not sure if you can get it at Michael's, but you can find any type of chenille yarn even on Amazon. It's relatively inexpensive. Now let's talk about some whips. I wanted to show you the progress I've made on my Amy sweater. Let me just see which is the front and the back. This is the front. Oh wow, it's hard to tell on camera. I'm so sorry, I'm out of breath. So the Amy sweater has this beautiful, tall, folded over turtleneck. And I did shorten the turtleneck a little bit, just because I didn't want it to be as tall as hers, but I think you'll still get the full effect with it. And I've done the body, and you can see I am on the first sleeve. I'm actually a decent way through the sleeve just because the yoke is so long on this sweater that I actually don't think I have that much left to go on the sleeves, but I do want to make sure that the sleeves are longer rather than shorter. So I'm just going to be trying it on as I go. And I've been loving it. I don't know what else to say. This is the progress, basically. I think I'll be able to finish this by next week, and maybe I'll wear it to the baby shower. The next whip I had is the other mini scarf that I've been working on. This is the Riptide 135 pattern. Oh, I also didn't mention, sorry, the Amy sweater is by Petite Knit. My brain is a little all over the place, but yeah, that was by Petite Knit. The Riptide mini scarf is by Jennifer Shields Toland, and the pattern when you purchase it actually comes with 3 patterns. So the Riptide 1 is her mini scarf length. The 3 is a longer, I think it's just longer. It could also be wider scarf length, and the 5 is actually the Riptide shawl, which gives you a true shawl look, like what you're thinking about a shawl, not like the Pia shawl. So that's cool that you get 3 patterns in one, and they all feature this beautiful, what she calls, I guess, is the Riptide pattern, but they do kind of look like little waves. And I absolutely love this pattern. It is so pretty. It's a really fun knit because the repeat is actually only 4 row repeats, and every time you're on the wrong side, you just knit the stitches as they appear. So you really only need to memorize 2 lines, and they're very easy to memorize. By the time I finished the increase part and got to the body, pretty much I could memorize it and do it on the go. And this is perfect for on the go because the repeat is so short that if you are, at someone's house or a place where you're going to be interrupted a fair amount, doing the 4 rows takes you maybe 2 minutes, like if you're knitting fast. And so it's an easy project to start, stop, start, stop. As long as you finish the 4 row repeat and then you stop, then you always know that you're on the first row. So this has been my go-to travel whip currently. And it has a nice asymmetrical increase, which I find very elegant, and it's just beautiful. All of these little eyelets are just created by yarn overs, and there's some stockinette in between. I just think it looks really, really pretty. This is making me want to knit the shawl version. The only thing that's stopping me from knitting the shawl is because with something like this, you have to knit flat, and so you are purling. The shawl, I think, only features this pattern towards the bottom edge, and then I think the rest of the shawl body is in stockinette. It could be in garter, but I'm pretty sure it's in stockinette, meaning you would have to do a decent amount of purling. But I just love this motif so much that I'm like, dang, I kind of want a shawl in this pattern. Maybe I'll knit my mom one and see how that turns out. The yarn that I'm using is one that I acquired a while ago from Grace and Pearl. It's by Woolfolk. It's the Woolfolk Tauve DK. And it's just in their color 0, which is their basic white. So I'm not quite sure if this is undyed or if this is just their white color. But I love the way it's looking with the stitch pattern. I know it's basic because it's white, but I think it really looks good with the scarf. It looks so elegant. I am very excited to finish this scarf. The cool thing too about the pattern is that she provides an actual measurement. So if you want to knit it exactly to the pattern, you can do that. But she also suggests that if you have a different quantity of yarn or something, you can just knit the body, and the decrease section only takes about 4 grams of yarn. So you can just weigh out 4 grams of your yarn when you have that left, and then start doing the decreases, and that'll give you enough yarn to finish off your scarf. So that is what I'm doing. I'm just going to knit until either the length that I want, or until my ball of yarn has 4 grams left, and then I'll do the decreases. I'm pretty close. I want this to be slightly shorter than the Pia scarf because I'm most likely going to just wear this as one layer and tie like that. So I really only need it to be about like maybe 15 centimeters longer, just because I think the pattern is so cute. I want it to really just lay in one layer so you can see it and then have it be a little tie. I think that's what I'm envisioning. And I really like this yarn. It's really soft. It is considered a DK weight yarn, but to me it's kind of thin. So I don't know. If this was a DK weight yarn, I feel like you'd have a pretty holy fabric if you were using 4mm needles. I'm using 3.75mm needles. And I don't know. I guess the stockinette looks pretty dense on like 3.75. So anyways, it's considered a DK weight yarn, but to me it's kind of on the thinner side of DK, but I'm really excited to finish this scarf. I'm also bringing this today. So I actually plan on working on this for the most part and finishing this today before I move on to my Amy sweater. But I'm pretty confident that, again, I'll be able to definitely finish this one today and a lot of my Amy sweater. Lastly, I have 2 crochet whips. The first one is another baby blanket, but calling it a blanket is kind of comical because it's so holy that this is more of, I don't know, a throw. Like, to me, this doesn't read blanket, you know? It's essentially a giant granny square pattern, and the pattern repeats. So I'm already at the repeating part, but you essentially knit the whole square with the one section of repeat, and then you just keep going around and around and around. And the yarn that I'm using is the yarn that I had initially bought for another baby blanket that I was gonna make, that I was gonna knit, but I got frustrated with the way it was knitting, so I frogged it, and I just had a bunch of this yarn from Knit Picks. It's just their cotton, comfy cotton yarn, and it's just been in my stash. Wasn't sure what to do with it. I don't like knitting with 100% cotton, so I figured I would save it for some sort of crochet project. And I just took a glance on Ravelry and found this pattern. This is called the Baby Shower Blanket, and it's by Michael Selick, and he actually has a really in-depth tutorial online. This is a free pattern, by the way, and his video online is actually super helpful because while I have a lot of experience crocheting and crocheting little amigurumi figurines and everything like that, I actually feel like I get really confused when crocheting granny squares because for some reason it's just really hard for me to tell where the borders are, and I always just end up with the wrong stitch count, and I don't know why granny squares are so hard for me to crochet. But the video was very helpful because instead of just looking at the written instructions, which can get a little overwhelming, I was just following what he was doing, and the YouTube video takes you through one entire repeat, basically, of this entire thing, and it's filmed like in high def, and it's very easy to follow, so I really appreciated that. And I'll hold it up a little close so you can see some of the motifs. I think it'll look better once, I block it out and everything. It looks kind of wonky right now, very rustic, but yeah, it is quite holy. So that's also making me doubt myself. Like, do I just continue and make this a big throw? Because this is not going to really give him any warmth. And because there's this popcorn stitch that's very bumpy, it's not like the most comfortable blanket. So I'm kind of in a dilemma, guys. Like, let me know what I do. It's at this kind of awkward size of like, what is this? Like a doily, like a placemat size almost. So I could just stop and, I don't know, have it be like a wall hanging, like a decoration on the wall. That would look kind of nice. I'm just doubting myself to make this into a giant blanket because I really don't think he's going to get a lot of use out of it, and it's going to be decorative anyways. So maybe I just stop after this one border and have it be like an art hanging. Let me know what y'all think. I don't know, but I have been having fun crocheting this because pretty much every round you're crocheting something different, which is really fun, and it is making me enjoy crochet again. So just for the purposes of that, I'm happy I've been working on this as just a palette cleanser from knitting, but not enough to like make me want to make this into like a quilt, you know, because I just, again, don't think he's gonna use it. So maybe I will just make it into a little art piece and hang it on the wall as decoration. And the last piece that I am crocheting is also one that I'm just working on when I really need a break from knitting, and it is the Ez Basket Bag by Alexander Tavel. It's done with the Lion Brand 24/7 cotton yarn, which I have a bunch in my stash from a previous crochet project that I never did. And I just am using the black colorway. The one that is in the pattern, I believe, uses, let's see if she says what color. It's like that nice light beigey camel color. In the photo, I'll put a photo of it, what it looks like, which I do really like, but I did not want to go out and just buy extra yarn just to do this crochet project, even though Lion Brand 24/7 cotton is very, very cheap, but I still just didn't want to go out and buy it when I had a lot of this black on hand, and I think the bag would look really good in black as well. I have basically finished the bottom. This is the bottom of the bag. You crochet it with the yarn held double, and I will say your fingers do hurt after a while. My hand definitely gets sore after a while because the cotton has no give and you are doing it double. So it does get tiring. And because of that, especially in the third trimester, my hands and wrists have definitely cramped easier. That just comes with being pregnant. So I have since kind of paused on working on this, and I got a lot of it done on one afternoon, and after that my hands just felt so tired I just couldn't continue. I have basically 3 more rounds to go on the bottom, and then you can start on the body. I just don't know how long that's going to take me to finish because I've just put this on pause for now, but that's okay. I just wanted to use up some of this 24/7 yarn, and I think this is the perfect project, and I should have enough yarn to make a full bag out of it. So this is one that I thought I would just show, but I probably won't show again until it's a completed object, maybe a year from now. It's just something I have that's easy peasy on the, I don't know, that's just like done, and I can turn to it if I want, but I'm not going to pressure myself to finish it because it's been hurting my hands. Alrighty, so that's it for this episode. I don't really have any acquisitions. I don't do a lot of acquisitions. I like to just buy the yarn when I have a project in mind. That'll probably change in the future, I'm sure, as I go to more like yarn festivals and just like I'm not really that knowledgeable about what yarns are out there. So for now, my stash is relatively minimal and every yarn kind of has a purpose, which I find nice. I don't want to like go overboard and buy too much yarn. But yeah, so no acquisitions for this week. I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.